Okay, algebra, hi. I value your time, so I'm going to really try to keep my videos to the 20-minute limit, which means that in reviews, they're going to be super duper fast, but there's always those videos to go back to. So, just to review parabolas, we have certain features. You need to know that the word parabola means a U shape, and that U shape could go up if my equation is positive, or it could go down if my equation is negative. I often refer to this as a happy graph or a sad graph. Okay. When I look at my parabolas, I'm going to have 4 important points, and we're going to make that into 5 actually. So, we'll have x-intercepts, which are also known as roots, and that's where I hit my x-axis. Okay, we have the y-intercept, which hits that y-axis. We have the vertex, which hits right there. It's in the middle, it's on that line of symmetry. And then the 5th point that I'm adding in is that you have to be able to mirror the y-intercept. So that'll give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 important points. Okay. Quadratics have 3 forms. They have the standard form, which is this ax squared plus bx plus c. I often refer to this as the first, the middle, and the last instead of the ABC version. But the reason why the ABC version is important is because of that quadratic formula we learned back in February, which is the negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this whole semester comes together and it will wrap up into one problem. Okay? So, standard form is that. Factored form usually has 2 parentheses, and we usually take the opposite of right here. Today we're really focusing on factored form and solving for it. Okay? So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up taking each of those parentheses, setting them equal to 0, and figuring out what the actual x-intercepts are. Okay? Then there's the vertex form, which has the 1 parenthesis, has a squared, and it has the opposite x and the same y. Okay? We'll circle back to vertex form. That's what we started with distance learning. But we haven't done a lot with that in the last 3 weeks. So, last week we focused on going from factored form to standard form. On your Delta Math, you are going to have questions on the features of a parabola. So it's still going to ask you to recognize this looking at the graph. A lot of us are really good at that now. You're still going to have this factored to standard. So it's really important to me that you understand how to do this. Okay? So, if I give you a problem, this negative 3, the parentheses x plus 2, and then parentheses x minus 1, you see those 2 parentheses. Those 2 parentheses mean, hey, draw a box and multiply. By multiplying, we put those parentheses on the outsides. And then we multiply to get the insides. Then I take all these pieces in the box and I add them all together. When I do that, there's one piece where I can combine like terms, and it's with the x's. So these two can combine together and they give you just 1x. Okay, at that point, we would see something that looks like standard form, except it is really super important that you don't forget that front number, that coefficient. And so it says, go ahead and multiply the lead number if needed. And you need to. You have to distribute. Then that gives me my ax squared plus bx plus c. And this is the important part of that right now. And it's my y-intercept. So now today what we're going to practice is we're going to practice looking at that factored form. I'm going to have you go from factored form to the standard form just because I need you to practice it. And then we're also going to talk about going from the factored form into x-intercepts. So just to give you a idea of what this looks like in the end, I'm going to give you a problem. I'm going to ask you for standard, factored, and vertex form, all three forms. And when you have all three forms, you can give me the vertex, and you can give me the line of symmetry, and you can give me the x-intercept, and you can give me the y-intercept, and you can tell me if it's concave up or concave down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a factored form from Delta Math right now, and we're going to talk about what we can find at this point in time. So right now it has negative x minus 5 and x plus 3. Okay, you should know right now that because there are parentheses, that this is called factored form. Okay, right now we don't know standard. And we don't know vertex. Okay, but at this point we understand how to get to standard form. And that's going and using that box method and going all the way into the ax squared plus bx plus c. Before we do that, I want to know what point we could find from standard form. And you should be able to tell me that you can find the y-intercept from standard form. From factored form, we can tell the x-intercepts. And that's really what we're working on today. So my x-intercepts come from these parentheses. And what I do is I set them equal to 0. It's called that zero product property. Set everything equal to 0. And when I do that, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. It cancels there. I get negative x equals 5. I get x equals negative 5 because I either move the negative or you can multiply or divide by the negative side. So a lot of times I'll show it like this. Okay, so I could subtract 3 from both sides. That cancels, and I get x equals negative 3. This gives me just the x's. And my x-intercepts need to be shown as points. If I have the x's, but not the y's of x-intercepts, the y's are always 0 because it's an intercept. Okay. So in Delta Math, that's going to be all it asks for. So if I flip back to Delta Math right now, I would be able to answer that of, hey, it was -5 and -3, and it had to be both of them in the front. So it had to be this one. I would submit the answer. They would tell me yes. They go through the steps. So they tell you, hey, I solved both equations. So they go and they show you the two equations that they put together, and then they put it in point form. Now, for practice, because I'm also giving you from factored form to standard, you need to put those parentheses on the outside. Notice that I'm always drawing in those signs. Really important. If I have x times -x, I get -x squared. If I have x times -5, I get -5x. If I have 3 times -x, I get -3x. If I have 3 times -5, I get -15. This gives me -x squared minus 5x minus 3x minus 15. Some of you are fast enough to do this in the box. And you see that -5x minus 3x gives you -8x. And if you're attending library nights, other teachers might be teaching it that way. I like for you to combine like terms here, just because I think it's a little more visual. Okay. There was no front number. So see how there's no front number there? I don't need to go multiply anything in. At this point, we have standard form. My standard form is -x squared minus 8x minus 15. And the important point here is that -15. We can also tell that this graph is a sad, sad graph. And the reason why the graph is sad is because that front sign is a negative. Okay, so right now that's extra information. But by the end of this semester, you're going to be able to do all of these things together. So that's why I'm showing you now little bits and pieces added on. Okay, I'm going to do another one. New problem. This one's pretty easy. It doesn't have something in the front. That one we've already done with a negative. I'm trying to see if they give you one with a number in front. Ooh, right here. Super tricky. Okay, so -x minus 2, -x minus 3. Because you see the two parentheses, this is in factored form. Everything I give you today is in factored form, but I want you practicing. I want you knowing that that is factored form. Okay. Now, from factored form, I can get my x-intercepts. It comes from the -x minus 2, setting it equal to 0. The -x minus 3, setting it equal to 0. When I do that, I'm solving like normal. So the thing that I move first is the -2 or the -3 because they're farthest away from the x. In order to move those, you use the opposite signs. This is all solving equations from first semester. We cancel, we cancel. I get -x equals +2. I get -x equals +3. All we do is switch the signs. So that becomes a positive, that becomes a negative. That becomes a positive, that becomes a negative. You can do that by switching signs, by moving the sign over, or by dividing by -1. Your choice. You could also multiply by -1. But I don't think any of you liked that in fall. Okay, so my x-intercepts are using these pieces where it says x equals -2, x equals -3. But my x-intercepts need to be in point form. Since I have two x's, I get 2 points. I get -2 and -3 paired with zeros as your y's. So that would be how we answer the delta math. But I also want us practicing going to the standard form, which means that I want you to draw a box. It means that you put the -x minus 2 on the outside, the -x minus 3 on the outside. Notice that that negative is sticking with the 3. Really super important. Negative times a negative makes a positive x squared. Negative times a negative makes a positive 2x. Negative times a negative makes a positive 3x. Negative times a negative makes a positive 6. Okay. So then this is going to be x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6, where we get to combine these two pieces. So I get 5x plus 6 with that x squared in front. There was no number in front, so we're chilling right there. We get x squared plus 5x plus 6 as our standard form. This is a happy graph because it is positive. There's no leading like weirdness going on. It doesn't tell us that it's sad, so we assume it's happy. It has a y-intercept of 6. And those are all things we're practicing right now. We're trying to bring them all together. Okay. I'm going to do one that I haven't seen in the Delta Math, but just in case it shows up, I want to make sure you're okay. We're going to answer this question. We had gotten, what did we get here? -2 and -3 as our answers. So it's not this one. It's not this one. It's not that one. -2 and -3. Both with zeros in the second spot. So notice they put this one to trick you, but it's that one because it's for the x's. Oh, it is not for the x's. It's for the y-intercept. Let me pull this over here. See how it says y and not x? So if it's for the y-intercept, then we're looking for that last number right there. That's 6. Okay, and they give you two choices here. They give you the 0, 6, and they give you the 6, 0. Okay? Because it's a y, you are looking for it to be in the y position. Right there. So you do have to pay attention to those words, the y-intercept or the x-intercept. I'm so glad I taught you it with both the y's and the x's, because I thought that there were just x questions. Okay. So we're looking for the y-intercept. The 6 should be in the y. Submit the answer. Yes. No problem. This one's looking for x-intercepts. So it's going to be one of these ones that have the 2 points going on. It's going to be one of the ones with just the zeros in the y's. So I'm going to do this problem for you real quick. Okay, so if I'm just trying to get x-intercepts right now, I'm going to negative x plus 3 equals 0. I'm going to x minus 2 equals 0. I'm getting minus 3 minus 3. Negative x equals negative 3. That means I switch my signs and I get x equals 3. Add 2, cross that off, x equals 2. These are my x-intercepts, but I need to put them in point form. Since there's 2 x's, there are 2 points, 3 and 2, 0 and 0. So the one I had my answer on. And done. Okay, so just make sure you're paying attention and looking to see, does it say X or does it say Y? And if it says Y, you definitely need to go and solve doing the box. And they're looking for your y-intercept to be in a point form. So you want it with the 6 there and the 0 there.